The Bradford family lived in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Jacksonville, Florida. To the outside world, they seemed like the perfect American family. Thomas Bradford was a well-respected cop with the Jacksonville Police Department, known for his years of service and dedication to the community. His wife, Clara, was a stay-at-home mom who devoted herself to raising their 2 kids. Their son, Lucas, was 15 and starting to show some serious talent in sports, while their little girl, Emma, was 12, bright and full of curiosity, always smiling. But behind the picture-perfect image, the Bradfords had some dark secrets that nobody could have ever imagined. One Tuesday afternoon, Clara came home earlier than usual. She'd spent the afternoon running errands, picking up groceries, and getting everything ready for a family dinner. But when she walked into the house, something felt off. The house was eerily quiet, too quiet. There was usually the sound of the TV, or kids running around, but not today. Something felt wrong. Clara walked down the hall, her heart starting to race. She heard something from Emma's room, a muffled sound. And then, faint whispers, like someone was talking in hushed tones. Her stomach turned. Slowly, she made her way toward Emma's room, unsure of what she was about to find. When she pushed the door open, she froze. There, on top of her daughter, was Thomas. Her husband. The man she'd trusted, loved, built a life with. It didn't make sense. Her brain couldn't process it at first. But when the reality hit, it felt like a punch in the gut. Thomas, the cop, was hurting their daughter. Clara's heart stopped. The world around her seemed to freeze in that moment. The confusion, the disbelief, all turned into an overwhelming surge of panic and rage. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. For a moment, everything went blank. And then something inside her snapped. Without thinking, she turned quickly, ran to the nightstand where Thomas kept his off-duty gun, and grabbed it. Her hands were shaking, but her instincts were clear. She aimed the gun at Thomas and pulled the trigger. The gunshot rang out, echoing through the house. Thomas collapsed, gasping for air, blood pooling around him. His eyes widened in shock, his mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Emma, curled up in the corner of the bed, was shaking uncontrollably, crying, but not able to understand what had just happened. She couldn't process what she was seeing, her father, her protector, her abuser, lying there, lifeless. Clara didn't even think. She turned to her daughter, her heart breaking as she saw Emma trembling, her innocence shattered. Her mind raced. Was this real? Was she dreaming? Could she have done something else? But deep inside, she knew that she had done what needed to be done. Her daughter was safe, but the cost was more than she could bear. But then, she heard it, a groan. Thomas was still alive. He was reaching for his gun. His hand fumbled near his holster, trying to get a grip. The sight of him trying to move, to reach for the weapon that could turn everything upside down again, filled Clara with an uncontrollable rage. Her body surged forward, without hesitation. She pulled the trigger again, this time aiming for his head. The bullet hit its mark. Thomas stopped moving. For a moment, everything went silent except for Clara's heavy breathing. She stood there, staring at her husband's lifeless body, her mind racing, but she didn't feel relief, she felt emptiness. She had protected her daughter, but her life, as she knew it, was over. Clara knew she had to call 911, but what would she say? That she had just shot her husband? That she had killed a police officer? The man she had loved and trusted for over a decade, the man who had turned out to be a monster? Her hands were shaking as she dialed. 911, what's your emergency? The operator asked. I shot my husband, Clara whispered, her voice breaking. He was hurting our daughter. Within minutes, sirens filled the street, and police officers stormed into the house. They froze when they saw what had happened. Their colleague, a fellow officer, was dead. Clara was handcuffed and placed in the back of a patrol car. Emma was taken into protective custody. The story spread quickly. A well-known cop, a murdered husband, a distraught mother. News outlets couldn't get enough of it. But what they didn't know was the secret Thomas had been hiding all these years. Nobody had any idea of the depths of his crimes. He had been living a double life, one in which he wore the badge of a police officer, respected by his peers and the community, and another where he was a predator, preying on his own family. The trial was a media circus. Prosecutors wanted Clara to pay for taking the law into her own hands, for murdering a fellow officer. They painted her as a woman who had lost control, a mother who had taken justice into her own hands. But the defense painted a different picture. They argued that Clara was simply a mother protecting her child from a predator, from the very man she had married. Medical reports confirmed Emma's abuse, and doctors and psychologists testified that Emma had been suffering for years. Witnesses, including Thomas's own colleagues, revealed the truth. There had been rumors about him, complaints that had been brushed under the rug, swept away by his position in law enforcement. No one had done anything to stop him, not even when they had the chance. The justice system had failed Emma long before that fateful night. The jury deliberated for 3 days. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Clara sat, her hands folded in her lap, her head down. She couldn't look up, couldn't bear to face the public eye. When the jury finally came back, the room was silent. The weight of the moment was too much to bear. "We find the defendant not guilty," the jury foreman announced. Clara collapsed in tears. It was over. The world had seen her as a murderer, a woman who had killed her husband, a cop. But in Emma's eyes, she was still her hero, the woman who had saved her from the unimaginable. The woman who had taken the ultimate step to protect her. And so, the story ended. Thomas's dark secret went to the grave with him. He had been a monster, but no one had known the extent of his actions. Emma and Clara were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. They moved far away, away from the whispers, away from the judgment. But they still had each other. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.